Welcome to the Pop Cult Podcast. Here are your hosts, Ariana and Seth.
This is the Pop Cult Podcast. I'm Seth.
I'm Ariana.
And today we have two recently released non-English language films. A little bit later, we're going to be talking about the North Macedonian film, Housekeeping for Beginners, my first Macedonian film. I think probably yours as well.
Yeah.
But first, we're going to be talking about a film that has come out of Turkey about dry grasses. This is a film summarized thusly: facing allegations of sexual misconduct, a disillusioned teacher in a remote village meets a colleague who may help make sense of the challenges at hand. And I think that's a terrible description of this movie.
Oh, yeah,
That's the official description, because that's not at all what this movie's about. This movie is about a deeply selfish, hateful person.
Yes.
Well, here, I'm going to give you the question. Does the director, Nuri Bilge Ceylan, see our main character, Samet, the school teacher, as a redeemable character or not? So I want you to think about that. And I'm going to give a little background on the director here. So Nuri Bilge Ceylan his background originally was in acting a little bit, but mainly photography. His first feature film was released in 1995. He's made 10 so far. He's also Turkish. This is a film that is in Turkish. We had previously seen his last film that came out in 2018, The Wild Pear Tree. And it's a movie where I don't remember every detail of the plot. It's hard for me to recall, but I do have vivid memories of specific images and moments in that movie. Like they're very powerful. And his work, I would say, is most often concerned with very existentialist ideas, mainly intellectuals clashing with the rural communities they come from or they're forced to kind of live amongst. Because in The Wild Pear Tree, it was a young man who had gone off to, I think, Istanbul to university, and he came back home. And it was a lot about that sort of dissonance between the kind of person he was now and the kind of place he came from and his family, and trying to make sense of all of that.
And the person he wanted to be.
And I would say About Dry Grasses, it's a 3-hour and 18-minute movie. And it is long, complex. It demands your patience. And I would argue it rewards it many times over. So what did you think about Dry Grasses?
Well, perhaps I should answer your question.
We can answer the question at the end of the review.
I thought it was a very good film. It was one, we did break it apart in 2 viewings because it was so long, but it was one of the viewings that I think I would have been fine sitting through the whole time.
It was sort of like we did the same thing with Jackie Brown.
Yes.
Where it was on an evening where we were like, I don't know if we want to sit for that long. But kind of when you got to that halfway point, I was like, I feel like I might be able to sit here and keep going. But at the same time, I didn't want to like push it.
He is such Samet is such a hard character to like.
So kind of explain what he does at the school, his living situation.
Yeah. So Samet is he has a housemate that he's had for 2 years. His housemate is also a teacher. Samet is an art teacher. I think his friend is a history teacher.
Yeah, it's Keenan is the name.
Keenan has been at the school for 5 years.
And is Keenan
7 years.
A local to this community?
Yes, he is.
Okay. And then Samet is not?
Samet is not. Apparently what it is you can become a teacher, and a teacher is considered a civil servant. So you are told where to work and to a certain degree, and then every year you can ask for a transfer, but they tell you most likely you'll get a transfer after 5 years.
The structure of it made it look like teaching was very much controlled by the federal Turkish government.
Yeah.
With sort of like regional ministers of education that would kind of make those decisions about transfers.
Yes. He is not particularly a good teacher. He's not kind. We don't see a teacher that is engaging with students. In fact, he plays obvious favorites.
When he openly looks down on them because of where they're from.
Yes. And it is obvious to a certain degree on how he kind of looks down on everyone around him.
Yeah, his roommate, he doesn't respect
There's
his
like,
colleagues.
and it's one that like I could say like I've met many arrogant men like this. I feel like we all have to a certain degree, especially like it could come up from our own friend groups or especially, but it's also kind of hard to deal with when you're dealing with someone that could be like early to mid 30s with this type of arrogance.
Unmarried, I think, is a big part of this
Yes.
because I feel like Ceylon is connecting with a lot of what's happening with white men, especially in the current era of sort of late stage capitalism, of it, things clearly going off the rails, all these sort of promises made by, because I know Turkey is, I think, President Erdogan, who is a very right wing hardliner, and they make these big promises to men about what they can achieve. They just, toe the hierarchical line, which inevitably fails, and then they try to blame like leftists and women and things like this as so the reason you didn't that dream wasn't fulfilled for you was because of these groups that have no power in the system.
Yeah. And so when we meet Sumet, I think it's like it's early between when you're trying to decipher is it Keenan supposed to be the main character or him because we're watching them sit down and talk. Keenan has just come back from
Samet has just come back from visiting his family.
visiting his family.
I think it's like kind of their spring break, but where they live in Anatolia, I think is the region. It's like snow for a long. We don't see the place without snow until the very end of the movie. Yeah.
And he talks about how he doesn't really have much fondness for his family. He's not like a sentimental type of person.
Are you talking
Obviously,
about Samet?
yes,
Okay,
Cement.
yeah.
About how his mother would like him to get married, but he is in this refusal stage, and he's constantly being like, well, I'm still young, so it's fine.
But I think he's maybe what, like 35, 36?
Yeah. And
Which you're like, hey, he doesn't want to get married yet. That's fine. But it's much more complex than that.
yes.
Yeah.
And so we see the different friendships that he has within this small rural community. There is this one young man that seems to be out of his luck, unable to get a job, and owes Samet money, but Samet keeps saying, it's fine, it's not a problem.
Is that Feyyaz?
Yeah. And then this older gentleman that he has conversations with. And then later on we see him conversing with who we assume to be this like the army that has some type of like
There's like an army base in the village, and he's like friends with them.
It's more like he has these casual acquaintances to pass the time, but doesn't have deep meaning relationships with them.
Yeah.
And through that conversation with this man, he mentions there's a young woman who's just moved back. You should meet her. And he's like, I don't want to be set up. He's like, I'm not saying you have to marry her, but you should meet her. You should meet her.
That's Nore,
who is a far more interesting and compelling character in comparison to him.
Tell some of the details, sort of back history of her character, things that I think play an important role in defining her.
Nore is originally from that village. She has family there. She has a sister that lives in
Istanbul.
She originally was in Istanbul and apparently was being on protest. She's a leftist.
Yeah, I think she calls herself a socialist.
Yeah,
I think
she's a socialist. On her social media, it's obviously, since it's private, she's a little bit more forward about her beliefs, but she understands where she's from, so she behaves accordingly. Long skirts.
She dresses in a way that won't draw attention to her.
She dresses in a way that won't draw attention. She understands that any relationships that she has with men has to be out in the public. She cannot be out alone with them, despite the fact that she is herself within her 30s.
She understands she lives in a very repressive, conservative culture.
Yes.
And then there's something physical about her that I think is a big part of the story.
So she is an amputee.
Her right leg, I believe.
She lost it during a protest that somebody had threw a bomb. And she kind of explains to Cement, not like the first, but it's like maybe the second time when they're with also with Keenan.
When we see her for the first time, she's walking with a very obvious limp.
Yes.
So it's clear she does have some sort of physical disability.
Where she explains what had happened and how not even the ambulances wanted to go pick them up because they wanted not to be associated with what had occurred. And that a friend of hers had basically forced a taxi to take her with the promise that they would pay extra for cleaning up the mess afterwards.
And so Samet is kind of being set up with her by this acquaintance at the military base. Samet, I think what happens is he realizes she's disabled and he doesn't want anything to do with that. So he tries to pawn her off on his roommate Keenan because they're both from the same, I guess, like ethnic group or village. I wasn't.
It was
I
like
don't,
a cultural thing.
Yeah, I'm
It's
not
a village thing, but it was also
there's
like
some kind of
it's
cultural
like
background.
it's probably like the same type of tribe.
Yeah, and I think those scenes are really interesting where Samet goes with Keenan to introduce him to Nure, and I don't think Nure understands right away what's happening. She's a smart lady and she figures it out quickly.
Yeah.
But those, because one of the things I put down in my notes is this is a movie that most of it is just 3 hours of people sitting across from each other and talking, but it's riveting because of what they're talking about and the way Ceylon shoots it.
Yeah, and it's also this interesting thing that like because you're aware is mostly with Cement, the different conversations that he's had with multiple people, it's everything that he is left unsaid. The boldness which he has towards one villager or one coworker when he finds information, and then the unwillingness to confront it afterwards because he's going with everything that would benefit him at the end of the day.
He's an extremely disingenuous person.
Yeah, he's manipulative, and his manipulation is even far more obvious when it comes to a student of his.
Well, I wonder if you're talking about Nure. So that scene where they first meet and Keenan and Nure hit it off and start talking. What did you think of the way Samet reacted to their conversation? Because he doesn't talk much in that scene, but he's very present in that scene.
I think what's very interesting about it, I think it's like either the second or third, like the second time. So Samet is like being like, oh, well, I'm sure that now that you're teaching English, because she teaches at another school, you have to stay here for 5 years.
And because of her disability.
Yeah, and because his mindset is not just, oh, she has a disability, I don't want to be with her. Oh, if I am with her, I'm going to be stuck in this village. I don't want to stay here. He's constantly being like, I don't want to be here. I want to be an instant.
Every relationship he has is transactional.
Yes. And the moment like he's kind of like, oh, poor you, you're going to be stuck here. When she's like, it's not that bad, I have family. Also, by the way, with my disability, I'm allowed to actually go wherever I want.
She just requests a transfer annually and they'll send her there.
Yeah, and that's when you see him like bristle.
Well, because he's realized he's made a mistake by trying to hook her up with Keenan.
Yeah, and then it's the second or third one where Keenan and her are making like very meaningful eye contact. And Samet had asked her a question. She completely ignores his question and looks at Keenan and says, can I take a picture of your face to make a portrait? You have such an interesting face. And Samet, who is the art teacher.
Well, then she goes, oh, Samet, can you move your arm? It's in the frame.
Yeah.
Well, and then I also love like
she wants no trace of him in there.
Because I think it's almost like the first time he introduces them and he suddenly realizes they're hitting it off. The amount of noise he makes stirring his tea in his cup.
Yeah,
like that little thing is, you need to look at me. I want the attention on me.
Yeah, like her attraction for him is like no longer.
Well, he doesn't like the fact that she's obviously attracted to Keenan and she was just kind of lukewarm towards Samet. When Luke, in Samet's mind, he has this insane superiority complex.
Yeah.
Where he's thinking, well, you're a woman and you're disabled and you're a local here. You should be clamoring after me.
Me, who wants to leave this place and thinks everyone is underneath me.
And so I'd say that it's Samet's relationship with two women make up the core of this movie.
Yeah.
So it's Nure is a big part of it. And then the other half of that is Sevim, who is one of his students. And maybe we saw her earlier as like in a group shot. But the first time we're really aware of her is when the two of them are walking to class in the hallway. Talk to me about that scene and some of the before really knowing the full details of where the movie was going to go or what it was going to be about. What did you read out of that scene? The body language.
It was very interesting because it's like he's coming down the hall, she swoops in and she links her arms with him. And
like she is very flirtatious,
yeah,
but it's in the way that like an adolescent girl might be because they're testing the waters, and you expect an adult to be like, pull away and try to not to embarrass, but also
it's this
boundaries.
like when I've called, for example, a child flirty, it's never in my head of a sexual innuendo.
It's like a playful thing.
To me, it's like, oh, they like attention and they're trying to get your attention no matter what.
Well, they've seen the way like, grown-ups might link arms when they walk, or that
Yes.
sort of like physical closeness that's different than when you're holding hands with a little kid.
I think
Yeah.
is so well done because it's always in the shadows.
It's subtle.
It's subtle and it's in the shadows.
And like,
in the moment that they hit the light, they separate.
But remember he was looking behind him a couple times too as
Yes.
they're walking. And so all of these little like gestures indicated to me as, oh, he knows he shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And then he brings her back a gift from when he was in Istanbul, like some little like pocket mirror.
Yes.
Which he even kind of emphasizes to her that she shouldn't share that with anyone.
Yeah.
So it's full acknowledgement that he has crossed a boundary here.
Yeah.
And he is misleading this student.
And so in exchange, she has that gift and she's like, oh, do you have this extra bed cot at your house? One of the student needs it. So she's kind of like the leader between the girls and the kids in need.
There's I think, because I remember the shoes, because she comes into his office at one point to pick up a pair of boots. Because I remember she's the one who got the boots.
Yeah.
And then we see those boots later.
No, that's not her. It's another student.
I think that was her who grabbed those boots. Are you sure about that?
I am positive.
Okay. But as you get to know her more throughout the movie, you start to realize how aware and wise she is. And I think one of the core themes of this movie is learning to differentiate between intellect and wisdom.
Yeah, and I think it's also this thing that like Samet has placed himself almost a way of authority because he thinks he's above everyone else. That his influence should be
intellect. He thinks because he went to university, he has a degree, he's better than them.
Yes, but like he also is resentful for any other influences in these women's lives that they show.
Yep.
For example, when the whole thing with the letter occurs and he sees that Samet is talking to a boy.
Well, Sevim. One of the things I read, and it's that the film never clarifies who that letter is for.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sevim never clarifies who it's meant to be for. And that's where I think in that ambiguity is where you find like the core of the film. Because Samet assumes the love letter was written to him, and she's not verifying his take on it. That's when he suddenly becomes hostile towards her. Because what's happened is he sees himself above her because she's a student, she's a woman, she's a local.
Mm-hmm.
And he is now embarrassed in front of this person who is like, at least 3 rungs on the hierarchical ladder below him.
Yeah.
And he just becomes the pettiest, nastiest motherfucker on the planet.
Yeah.
And I think that actor, Denise Chelelu, he has moments in this movie where it's the Kubrick stare, right?
Yeah.
And I would say he is genuinely terrifying, just sitting there stewing in his hate.
Yeah.
You're just like, what is this like fucker gonna do?
Because there's multitudes of like being like how that event occurs that's kind of like wrong, right? The students get searched randomly during the day,
which is a violation of their rights. But I guess in Turkey that's just the thing they do.
They take her mirror and they're like, what do you think, this is a fashion show? Put it in like a box only for the teacher to pocket the letter. And then the teacher proceeds to, with another female teacher, make fun of the fact that she's written a love letter.
Well, and then he takes it and reads it in his office because
he doesn't read it completely. He's starting to read
but
it.
it's like but the smug little smirk on his face because he's like, oh, this little girl's in love with me. Isn't that so cute?
I also remember like the way that he came in, found about the letter, and demanded to take the letter
to give it back to her.
To give it back to her.
Well, he's also sanctimonious in that scene with his fellow teachers because he's going like, it's her letter. You don't have a right to take this. But then immediately goes to his office, opens it up, and starts reading it, which is, well, what right do you have to read it?
And that place isn't Sully's office is like an extra
the
room
gym
for
teacher
storage.
like stores things in there and stuff. Yeah,
and it's like he goes,
but it's separate from the other teachers.
Yeah,
and that's what's important.
Yeah,
he thinks he's different than them.
He thinks he's better than them because he like will. Because at the beginning shots we do see like the teachers like hanging out, and he is briefly talks to them, and then
he like gets coffee and then or tea and then leaves.
Yeah.
So the whole film is essentially Samet and his interpersonal relationships with Nure and Sivim and how these stories play out. What I loved was that Salan, the director, doesn't ever lean into the melodrama a Western audience might anticipate.
Yeah.
Because they take the mirror and you're like, oh no, they're going to find out he gave her the mirror. They never do. Oh no, the letter's going to be for him. And maybe, oh, he's going to like actually cross the line even further. That's not what happens. It's a much more interesting film in how it doesn't play to those melodramatic tendencies, and it remains firmly planted in just like authentic human interaction.
Mhm.
And the place that you get the spectacle and the wonder is the cinematography in this movie. I think few films we've seen in a long time have looked as good as this movie looks. Like Ceylon's background in photography is very evident. And between the Kubrick stare and the photography influences, I feel like he is a fan of Kubrick, possibly. He doesn't make Kubrickian movies.
No.
But he's in that same realm of where the image and the posing of the characters and just allowing the camera to sit and for things to play out in a frame is a fascinating thing if you know what you're doing. That you don't have to constantly be whipping the camera around. You don't have to constantly be cutting. Though one of the things I really enjoyed was the intentionality of so much of the cinematography in this movie. There's lots of ominous headshots following from behind someone, and the subject is centered, particularly Samet.
Yes.
And it's low, so we just basically get like, we don't even get the base of the neck. It's like the base of the skull up.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of following him as he's walking through. Like there's a scene where he's in Nore's apartment and he's walking and the camera kind of waits and then it follows him. And it's such a great shot, the way it's lit and framed.
There's also a beautiful shot of like behind Nure's head focusing, and you could see the wind pushing her hair, and you're kind of like, where's that wind coming from?
Because they're inside.
Yeah, and there's like the lighting that feels like cozy, but also just like worrisome in some way when you think about like how dreary everything is.
I'd say, yeah, the people he had on his lighting crew, he knew how to direct them, and they were very skilled.
Yes.
The use of Samet, because Samet mentions that he does still photography, and the use of that photography is very interesting because Ceylon intermixes it with images that at first appear to be frozen, but then you notice the wind blowing someone's hair. And you're like, oh, this is a person posing for a photo.
Yeah.
This isn't the photo. Or you suddenly realize that the snow is actually falling.
Or like the clouds are moving behind.
I also think Ceylon photographs snow better than almost anyone I've ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Samet Nure and Keenan are in a car, and then we cut to a point of view shot from the front seat, and there's layers of snow that transition into the final scene of the movie.
Yeah,
that was so like the precision of it to me communicated someone who just they truly understand how to work with an image.
Mm-hmm.
There's an instance in there's very clear-cut choices between when to hang on a wide shot where everything is in the frame and then when to cut to like closer shots, either mid shots or close-ups. during conversations.
Mm-hmm.
There's a conversation between Sumet and Nure, and most of it's shot in a wide shot. And then there's a moment where she asks a question and it cuts to a mid shot of just her or of him, and then it whip pans to her.
Yeah.
And then when his response comes, we cut back to the wide shot. And it's something that I wrote in my notes. It's an instance where cinematography draws attention to itself, but not in a bad way. It's as a means to underline a moment. He's going, you need to pay attention to what's said right here. That's important. And so I'm going to draw you into this moment so you really understand what's being communicated here is going to be important going forward. I'd say the last hour of the movie is emotionally brutal without ever being explicit or exploitative.
Yeah, it is.
Talk about, without really going into, character specifics, more just thematically and tone-wise, what you thought of how the film resolved itself.
It's an interesting resolution. It's one that, like, it's not as if relationships are extremely severed. In fact, it's more as if we're getting a long goodbye. It Cement, like, does not make himself any further likable or caring or charismatic. In fact, you start to actually feel like this is a grotesque human being.
Well, he resigns himself to the fact that I've burned all these bridges and I'm not even going to try to repair them.
Yeah, and it's Nure who is the actress just gave off such a great performance between her having a solo dinner scene with him and then her conversations afterwards.
The confrontation
scene. She does so well. When she starts to describe that what she feels is weariness, I could feel it in my bones. And especially how I was thinking this week has not been good emotionally, but when she was like, I just feel so weary. And the wording of it, I was just like, that is a perfect wording. The way she delivers it, the way that you can feel her exhaustion. And Samet is kind of trying to be endearing and being like, no, if you could see what I can see, but she is obviously unfazed by him, knowing that he's essentially lying to her. And then that goes from these really tense moments between Samet and Keenan of this unspoken thing between them, because Samet is kind of bragging about what he's done, not acknowledging that Keenan had these deep feelings.
Well, the intent is to hurt
him.
He needs to wound others so he can feel better about
and
himself.
The wounding is having to do with everything that has been unsaid between Nore and Keenan towards Samet, because I remember when we were talking about this and you're kind of like, oh, well, why wouldn't Keenan just just say what's going on? And I was just like, they've been housemates for 2 years. He must know that Samet is not a good person at the end of the day.
Keenan seems to be a much more a person who's reticent to conflict.
Yes.
And Samet doesn't necessarily like conflict. He likes to stab people in the back, essentially.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of Samet brings out the worst in Keenan at times.
Yeah.
Especially with the things that happen towards the mid of the movie.
Well, the accusations, because we talked about in the opening, the intro, that Samet is accused of sexual misconduct. And one of the things I thought was very interesting about the movie is we never really get 100% closure on that, because it's clearly a very misogynistic society. Because when they go to see the Minister of Education, he's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. We questioned the girls involved. It's over. Just, watch yourself going forward.
Yeah.
But we followed Samet, and we know what Samet did, and we know it's inappropriate, but he never went beyond what I would say is inappropriate flirtation.
Yeah.
He didn't touch or grope or anything from what we see in the movie, and it's implied that he didn't really ever do that. But Keenan doesn't read as a person that would do that. But then as we get more details, it's implied that the girls talk more about Keenan and the way he would like stare at them,
But it's
but we
also
don't
like
know if that was
we
true
don't
or
know if like the person who told Samet that was just trying to feed into his ego and let him know not to worry about it.
well, and also Samet he thinks it's obviously Seven was one of the students questioned, but no one ever confirms to him who was questioned, which I think is also very important because not even she confirms to him that she was
You
questioned.
know, it's always speculation that someone else, it's sort of like them going like, no, she spoke the most, but it was her friend who was the angriest, and they were angry about like Keenan, and you just happened to be involved. When it's sort of like if there was a complaint.
But I think what it is, Samet felt guilt because he realized I've led this girl on. I have been cruel to her. Like he's at least still human enough to acknowledge that, but he's
he
not human enough
continues,
to do
he
anything. Yeah.
continues to it. Like he makes it worse. Like he does this thing where he's having a conversation about her without saying it's her in the classroom, like, and getting like energized because the boys are finally getting the
Well, he
attention.
does. He kicks her out of the classroom.
Like he kicks her out, but like continues to talk about her.
Oh, well, you're saying there's some people among your classmates that will go to the authorities and they'll tell on you, and you have to watch those people.
Yeah, and there was like a student that was like, "Well, Samet told my sister." He's like, "I don't want to hear about it. That's in the past."
Because yeah, he doesn't want to focus on him. He wants to focus on let's make her the bad guy.
Yes.
So going back to my initial question, does Ceylon see Samet as a redeemable character or not? Think about that final
I think
monologue.
he does. But I think it's also this interesting thing that it's not a sexual misconduct because again, he doesn't touch her, they don't like, but it is also just being like how he reflects back about like his last conversation with her, how he's sort of like, I lied to you because you are going to be a happier person than I am, and I needed to steal that from you.
Well, because I think he underlines it in that monologue by also talking about how he knows the likelihood of her ever leaving this village is very small. So while she'll be a happier person, from his point of view, her life will not be as full as his. And so I think in his head, and so happiness is all you will have, and I took that from you too.
Yeah.
So I've left you with nothing from at least his perspective.
Which is also like this fucked up thing of deeming yourself as her happiness in some way.
Yeah.
Like he's still arrogant in so many ways.
And so I think it's one of those where I don't think Ceylon condemns Samet because I think mature, rational adults don't condemn people who don't really hold power in any way. But I think he does. It's a massive critique of Samet. And it's a critique of the type of person that Samet represents.
Yeah.
There was one little scene that we hadn't talked about, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I think it is a very gripping. Yeah, it's a very sort of stunning scene when it happens, and it's the break of the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And my read of that scene is because what he does when he's in the bathroom,
Goes wash his hands.
I think he does something else.
What does he do?
Does he take a pill?
I don't know.
I think he does. Because I was looking at some other people's comments and I was like, oh, did he take a pill? He has no attraction to Nure. He is not sexually attracted to Nure. So that scene is about him disassociating because he's about to do something in which he has no arousal. This is all about hurting his friend. This is about puffing up his own ego. He is using this woman. And that is, I think, Ceylon wants to communicate that visually because at the end of the day, he is a visual artist, despite how much talking happens in the movie. And so he thought the best way to underline that was to break the fourth wall of the movie. So you, as the audience, now are as disassociated, at least for that moment, as he is.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that interpretation of that scene?
I think it was also breaking, even if like I didn't notice the pill thing, but it was also a breakaway to sorts of like telling the audience like this isn't real.
Because it was about to get a little intense.
And not just
that intense.
the intensity, but we also have to think about the culture that we're going through.
Yeah.
This is an unmarried woman who
Thought she was inviting two men over.
who thought was inviting two friends over, only for her to realize what's going on and the amount of wine she's consuming herself.
Well, because yeah, she is sort of like, she is very mature in that she's like, I'm not in a relationship with anyone, so sure, I'll go to bed with you. Like,
Yeah, it's
that's my choice I'm making.
It is also like her tiredness of it being just sort of like how she's kind of like, let's just get this over with.
Or like she just wants to have sex. That's
Yeah.
it. She just wants the release of sex. That's it. Would you recommend About Dry Grasses to the people listening to our podcast?
If you're listening to this podcast, I think you would probably enjoy it.
I think it's available on Criterion. If you're a Criterion subscriber, it's on there. I'm sure it's available in other streaming places, and if not yet, it will be soon. I know Criterion will often do like an exclusivity thing for a period, and then it gets released. But I would say so far, having only seen 2 of Nuri Bilge Ceylan's films, I think I'm all in on Ceylan, and I feel like at some point I'm going to need to do a series and go back and like watch them all, or at least the ones that are kind of when he hits his stride.
Yeah.
Because the visuals and the way the visuals pair with the complexities of the stories that he's telling are just pitch perfect film for me.
Yeah.
Dita never wanted to be a mother, but circumstances force her to raise her girlfriend's 2 daughters, tiny troublemaker Mia and rebellious teen Vanessa. This is Housekeeping for Beginners, a film from North Macedonia, which if you're like me, an ignorant American, and you needed to go, I think I know where it is. And I was proud of myself. I was like, I think that borders Greece. I was right. I think it also borders Albania, Croatia. It's part of the Balkan region.
Okay.
And we had previously seen a film, and I can't recall the name of it. And I should have written that down in my notes. That was about the dissolution of Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
And at the end, we thought, I think this is propaganda that's like nationalist propaganda. And the more we read about the film,
socialist to just being like kind of nationalist,
where I think it was kind of defending Milosevic a little bit, which was fucked up. And that film was a film that used the stereotype of the Balkan person to justify itself. The Balkan is a bawdy, loud, aggressive, masculine man, right? That's the Balkan man that film was trying to portray. And I think Housekeeping for Beginners is interesting in that it is almost a rebuttal of those stereotypes. It is a film that does it feature a single heterosexual man in the movie?
Not that we're aware of.
Like a background character with no dialogue, I would guess. It's
just
all the men whose sexuality we're aware of in this movie are queer.
Yeah,
and they're not even
introduced. They're not really like a main character. They're just like on screen.
Well, we have 2 of them. Ali and Tony are 2 main male characters, and they're not even the main characters of the movie.
No.
So some interesting things I learned about this movie and the people in it, the people who made it, before we get into our conversation. So this is a film made by Goran Stilevski. He's 38 years old, is gay, Macedonian by birth, but raised in Australia.
Okay.
But has come back and has done multiple films in North Macedonia. He was born in Macedonia when I think it was like the Socialist Republic of Macedonia. And now, of course, when communism collapsed in Eastern Europe, it's no longer that. The 2 main characters in this movie, Dita and I would say Tony, the 2 quote unquote parents of the movie.
Yes.
Anna Maria Marinka, who plays Dita, is Romanian.
Okay.
Vladimir Tintor, who plays Tony, is Serbian. They learned every line of dialogue phonetically. It's spoken in Albanian. They don't speak Albanian.
What?
I would never have been like, I don't speak Albanian. I saw a thing on Letterboxd where they said, I think it was somebody who does speak Albanian. They're like, I barely noticed.
Wow.
Then the other thing I found out, Most of the other supporting actors in this film were what they refer to as street cast. They're not actors.
Oh, okay.
But the director remarked, he said the chemistry was so good that it felt very natural. And I would agree that like this home that all these characters live in, they feel like a real family unit to me. It felt like we were just
Wait,
stepping.
so even Vanessa, the teenager, is street cast?
I think.
Oh, wow. That is crazy.
They were actors who did not have a long like filmography or TV experience.
Kind of
'Cause,
like the Florida
yeah,
Project.
he wanted people who were authentic,
Mm-hmm.
who hadn't done so many roles that you didn't know who they were. He wanted some of their own personalities to come out. So the film is, I would say it is a melodrama.
Yeah, it is.
And that makes it very different from About Dry Grasses, which is very much a sort of nuanced character study. This is very much a melodrama. The plot, I think you could essentially see on like an American hour-long drama series. Like it's not
Oh,
very
yeah.
easily. You could adapt this very easily. But I think it being in North Macedonia, and I don't know a whole lot about that culture, but I do know some generalities about like Balkan culture in general. I do think that makes the decisions the characters choose reflective of the society they live in.
Yeah.
Because we have Dita, she works in social services.
Yes.
And she is partners with, and I cannot remember the name of Sauda. Yeah, Sauda,
Mm-hmm.
who is ethnically Roma.
Mm-hmm.
One of the bits of dialogue in there that really stuck out to me, and I thought, oh, I don't think I'm aware of what's going on internally in that culture, obviously. But there's an argument that happens very briefly at the table where they refer to Swada's people as Roma, and there is a Roma, because essentially what we haven't told our audiences, this Dita, as a social services person, has made enough money that she bought a house and she's basically turned it into a safe place for a group of queer people to live, mostly women. But then we also have Tony, who's close to Dita's age. And the vibe I got that these people have known each other for a very long time.
Yes.
Probably met each other when they were teenagers in the queer community, and it's just kind of looked out for each other. And then you have some younger women, maybe early 30s to 20s, that also, there's two of them are partners. One of them is not, I think. And then they live in the house with Dita, Swada, and Swada's two children that she had from previous heterosexual encounters. They never really go into detail if these were like consensual or if she was assaulted.
Yeah.
We just know that she had them with men and those men are not involved.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think is so interesting about this movie is the way it gave the audience information. Because it's a film that begins truly in media res. Because it opens with Ali hanging out with Mia and Vanessa without ever telling us what the relationship between these three people are.
Yeah.
Other than Ali, he's a young guy, Vanessa's a teenager, Mia's a little girl, and he seems to be like babysitting them or something.
It's like
they're dancing and singing.
Dancing and singing, yeah.
Then that's intercut with Dita and Swada, who we don't know their relationship with those other three people yet. And they're sitting in a doctor's office and there's scans or x-rays up.
Yeah.
And the doctor is basically ignoring them and on the phone with someone.
He's making personal calls constantly, not regarding them as people.
And so there's something that comes out of that that's going to go to this other scene. Is a woman interrupts. She opens the door to the doctor's office and is complaining because whoever she's there with has had to wait an extraordinarily long time. And he kind of shouts at her that, this is just the way it works. You need to go sit down and you'll be attended to when you get attended to. And Swada is sitting there. She's the patient in this case. And we learn very quickly she has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. But her reaction to the doctor, because she's also being made to sit there and wait while he's having what seems to be a very casual conversation. Maybe it's someone in the x-ray department that he called.
He calls his wife.
Okay, yeah.
Then he calls someone else that's supposed to be in the x-ray, but they start talking about sports.
Like football, I think.
Yes.
He mentions Arsenal. And then whenever he shouts at this woman, who I believe is supposed to be ethnically Roma, that woman who interrupts,
Yeah.
talk to me about Swada's reaction, because this is the first time we hear Swada talk. This is the first time we really see her do anything. So this scene is telling us who Swada is.
Swada gets immediately angry because
I wouldn't just say angry. She explodes.
yeah, she explodes. She starts destroying items within the office. She's like, if she wasn't like Romani, would you have spoken to her that way? What about me? Are you making me wait because of this? And proceeds to
Well, I love it's a hard cut, so we never see the end of that scene.
smashing. I think what's very interesting is how Dita sits there with this stoic look on her face, almost as if like she's not surprised by this, but she's also just sort of like, I cannot believe you're doing this right now. Reaction that you aren't really aware that this is a relationship that's supposed to be intimate.
Yeah,
Which
you're not sure if she's a caseworker for Swada. You're not sure if she's her partner. You're not sure why
like
she's
the
there.
perfect social worker face.
Yes.
Like the just sort of like, I can't believe this is happening, but I am not going to stop you right now until you've calmed down.
So then later, when they're eating dinner at some point, and someone mentions Roma, one of the lesbian younger women that lives in the house has an explosion. And she just starts saying, gypsy, gypsy. I'm so tired of this PC crap. Which is interesting to me because that woman is Roma who's making that thing. And it's this weird, it's sometimes you see it in, you could say like the Black community in America, a sort of reclamation of a word, like the N word, the way Black people have kind of tried to reclaim that word as something that can be used amongst them about themselves.
Yeah.
But this just seemed to be about which term do we use to refer to these people in general.
And this is a remark that is done multiple times in the movie, but just very subtly.
Yeah, it's not, he never makes it the focal point of the movie.
It's always like, it's this interesting thing where you will focus on Dita, who's kind of distracted.
And is a very white Balkan woman.
Yeah. And it is also just remarks about how when they're just like, oh, who's this white person?
Yeah.
So there's this obvious difference between these cultures.
Because both of Swada's children look to be full Romani, I would think. Like,
yeah, and it's like it reminds me of the movie that we reviewed afterwards. It's like, don't expect much from the end of the world.
Yeah.
Where there is like talks about like,
how do we talk about these people? Or the way the way the Roma are seen as, oh, well, you can't put, that was in, that movie. Oh, we can't put a Roma person in this training video because most of the population hates them, and so then they won't pay attention.
Yeah.
And so in that way, Stalevsky has made a film that's not just about one marginalized identity, queerness. There's multiple marginalized identities intersecting through this movie.
Yeah, because Tony isn't supposed to be exclusively white. There is a remark afterwards when
he has Roma heritage, I think.
Where Dita is being circled by her coworkers after basically a coworker let everyone know that she got married.
Oh, well, you're saying married. People who are listening are going to be, what are you talking about? Isn't she queer? I mean, this is going to be a spoiler to the movie because it happens very early.
Yeah.
Swada dies.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie is essentially about Swada. She spends the first 15 minutes or so of the movie really emphasizing to Dita, I need you to say you will raise my daughters.
Yeah.
Because the last thing she wants is for her children to be separated, put into a home where they're not going to be treated well, people who maybe hate Romani. And I don't think she wants them to go back to her village either, because we do visit the village a couple times.
Yeah.
And it does seem to be a place of people who probably mean well, but in terms of being queer, not a great place to probably live.
Yeah, and it turns out it's the same place where Aldi's from.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and so we finished the married part.
Okay,
so because and this is where it gets back to the culture, is because Dita just can't have the custody signed over to her because the idea is that the culture is much more conservative and regressive and wants to see a father and a mother, if at all possible. They have to do some forgery and make it so Tony is listed as the biological father of Vanessa, the teenager, because her father is long gone, no trace of him. And then through that, because he's now posing as the biological father of Vanessa,
The biological father, not of Vanessa, of Mia. Vanessa's the older child.
Oh, yeah. And so as Mia. And so then Dita poses as Tony's fiance. And then they go to court and petition, oh, well, because Tony was raising Mia, or was raising Vanessa alongside Mia when he was with Swata, which is all a lie.
Yeah.
Then we want to give him adoptive custody of Vanessa. And he just married Dita, so we're also going to have her legally adopt the children. So they fulfilled Swata's wish, was that Dita would be the mother of these children.
Yeah.
So I think that was important to explain, and I don't really think it's spoilers because this isn't really
No.
a spoiler movie.
No, like it's
Yeah.
you're just gonna have to go through the motions of it.
It's a slice of life movie.
It's the conversation is like one of our coworkers like, oh, you married so and so of ethnic group. You took one of ours, and someone
And she's saying like kind of jokingly,
yeah, and
playfully.
someone was like, what about like being yours? Like, aren't we supposed to be like, aren't we sharing and making a new culture? And then someone's like, I really hate this PC crap. And that is the moment that like Dita just zones out. Like
Yeah.
she doesn't like, and I think it's hard for her because like her former partner was obvious about the struggles that she went through. There's a conversation between her pleading and talking about how, yeah, Mia's mischievous, and like she's explaining all you have to do is buy her a ton of sketchbooks, a ton of coloring books. She won't be too much of a problem. And she's not like me. At her age, I was playing with dirt and mud.
Well, Vanessa turns out to be a lot like her mother.
Yeah.
Which I think the film does a very good job of taking traits from the short time we know Swata.
Yeah.
And then imprinting them onto Vanessa's character.
Yes.
So by the time you get to the end of the movie, you see through Dita's eyes, she can see Swata in Vanessa.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, you are your mother's daughter. Because the things I'm struggling with you are the same shit I struggled with your mom, the same kind of arguments about things.
Yeah. And so it's like how sad it is when like Swata explains like, oh well, nice white girls like you towards Dita like would get A's and B's and I would get C's, and my teachers would be like, I'm just being nice to you. Like C is like the max that you deserve.
Like it's charity grades. Yeah.
And how because of that she never saw worth within herself, and so like she is also in some way thinking, if my children are raised by this white woman, they will get a leg up.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the funeral happens. That is when like Vanessa is kind of like, you're towards Dita, you're not my mother. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to do what you want me to do.
And that's the part of the movie where I felt like I could see that coming.
Yeah.
And not to say that it's like cliche, but it's just very authentic. Like that's just what happens.
Yeah. And
but I think what's to me is the more interesting thing here. It's not the clash between Dita and Vanessa, because that's something we've seen in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is the interplay of this found family, particularly the Ali character.
Oh yes, I wanted to
talk about Ali.
So when Dita finally does come home, she's like, who are you? Who let you in here? You can't stay here. And Vanessa is making fun of Dita while she's in there. She's like, she's not gonna kick you out. She does this all the time. Just tell her you don't have a place to live. She'll give in.
Well, no, it was Swata, her mother's the one I think that's questioning him, right?
No. It's Dita at the beginning.
Yeah.
And he's like, Tony said I could live here, and she's like, well, Tony doesn't fucking pay the rent.
Well, the funny thing is that Tony is not present until maybe 15 minutes into the movie or so, and then you finally meet him, and you're like, that's what I was talking about, the way the movie, it's not going to handhold you. You have to really listen to the way these people are talking and go, oh, they don't know who he is.
Yeah.
They showed up and there's just this guy in his 20s hanging out with her kids.
But here's the thing that I really liked is Dita's kind of fed up with like what we could call her stepkids, sort of saying that like Mia's like screw you in the background.
And that's the little girl.
Yeah, it's just, and you're just gonna do whatever. And like, it's the moment that Dita comes close to Ali and looks at his hands that have been painted by Mia, but they're shaking.
Because he
And
feels like he's about to get thrown out.
And that is when she's kind of like, fine, you can stay.
When I love that little moment, you understand the whole history of this household.
Yeah.
Is she's encountered these people and been like, I can't throw you out because we never get anything about Dita's background, which I think is interesting. But we can infer why she would come to this way of life is she probably got thrown out of her house. But Swata was right, because she was a white, blonde, pretty woman. She was able to get back on her feet a lot more easily and decided, once I have the means, I'm never going to let this happen if I can to anyone else ever again.
And then she becomes a social worker. There's like this interesting thing that
and like, we know why she becomes a social worker, right?
Yeah. We also have this implication afterwards that because she just lets anyone stay in who has a gay background, there is also this moment with Tony that you're kind of like, he's older, this doesn't make sense. But you find out through Ali, which makes you show like Ali and Tony were very serious about each other, that Dita and Tony have known each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
That they've been friends for a very long time and seen each other through different situations. And that's,
we're probably the first two residents of this house.
And that's why they have this weird bond that isn't necessarily full of affection.
Yeah, they clash a lot.
They clash a lot, but it's this understanding that they would never leave each other. And there's like, for example, Tony doesn't know Saba's like plan. He kind of overhears it and is kind of like, okay, whatever. Yeah, I'll say yes.
Well, yeah, because it's after Swata dies. That's when Tony becomes, because they get the birth certificate forged.
And that's when he becomes aware of how serious this is.
And yeah, he comes in and sees his name on Mia's birth certificate and is like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, but then what I thought was interesting is how Ali is the one who facilitates the forgery, the newest member of the family. Because there's a great scene where he says he knows a guy, and then I love among the other lesbians, they're like, he knows a guy. Do you hear that? He knows a guy. And so I know a guy. And they ask, do you know a guy? Yeah, I know a guy.
And it's always like, because it's also that we're shown later on when Ali goes to Shakup.
Or Shaktu, I think. Like it's the village where Swata's from, and Ali is from.
And Ali is from there, and it turns out he has been lying to people saying that he's now an influencer. So it's just like, there's this thing about him where he's like, for example, telling Vanessa of all the cities he's gone through. But it's also like this thing that you later find out he might have not gone there through legal means.
Yeah.
And because he's like, no, I have an EU passport. What are you talking about? Like, he's like trying to, so that like, if you're not paying attention to the conversations, that would slip your mind.
But he has to be, it's this survival is what
it's also,
he makes up stories about himself as a means to like get through life.
It's a means to get through life, but it's also to tell people like, don't worry about me. My life's great. Yeah. Like, it's fine. And
well, it's also, he knows the cost of being vulnerable.
Yes.
As a queer man in this culture would mean he could be a target. But if he's a queer man who isn't phased, who is a jet setter, who has connections, then you don't want to mess with him as much.
Yeah, but it's also this interesting thing that like, so of course Vanessa like disappears through mid of the movie. Well, it's not the big disappearance towards the end.
Well, because it's through little bits of information we find out she's been messaging back and forth with an adult man.
Yeah.
Who is apparently engaged and is leading her on in ways that are very bad.
And so Ali had happened to like lead during this time. There's chaos in the household because Dita's like, where's Vanessa? Where's Ali? And then Mia's like, Ali's gone. I love that Mia's like, I don't give two shits about my sister. Ali is gone because he's like the major babysitter for her.
Yeah, and like she loves playing with Ali.
And so that is when Dita is like, well, we have to go find Vanessa, but I need to go find Ali first.
Well, and eventually by finding Ali, he helps them find Vanessa.
Yes.
Like Ali is this sort of connective tissue, even though he's the outsider.
It's this interesting thing because like there is an argument that happens between Vanessa and like Dita, and Vanessa's in the wrong, but Vanessa goes up and leaves out the room, and then a few minutes later it is Ali. We don't see that scene that happens between Ali goes upstairs to go comfort her. And it is also later on you start to figure out like the guilt that Vanessa feels by the pain that she's caused Ali by not paying attention to her own actions, and also like where her items are.
Yeah, I say Vanessa's arc is about maturing.
Yes.
Because one of the things I noted by the end of the movie, I was like, oh, she looks so much older. And that could be, hey, makeup and hair, you can do that. That's the movie magic, right? Is you make sure she is made to look younger at the beginning of the movie. At the end of the movie, we make her look slightly older, and that's a visual way of communicating growth.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be like she is sought out by these group of people who aren't her family, but then are telling her like, no matter what happens, we are going to fix this. We are going to do something about this. And it's also like the explosions of conversations that happens between them, the touching moments that really at first you'd probably be like, that's not a big deal, but it is a big deal to them. Like when
Well, and there's also a sense of worry throughout the movie, because anytime they brush up against the sort of authority, the government, there's this worry that they're going to take the kids away. Like there's a moment where Vanessa calls the police because Dita is trying to be a parent and tell her it's inappropriate for her to be communicating with this adult man. And Vanessa calls the police and says, I've been kidnapped by gay people. So then Dita has to kick everyone out of the house.
Telling them she's like, take anything that looks gay, throw it out. She's like, I will contact you. And like, they're freaking out because they're like, where are we supposed to stay? And
You've got to go.
I just can't keep you here.
And then so she and Tony have to sit there with Mia, like the nice little married couple with their family, and they got to wait for the police to arrive. And they have to sit there and make it appear as though this is all real. And that scene where they're pretending to be a hetero couple, what did you think of that scene?
It was so great because I love that Tony was like, I did not sell that. And she's like, nobody fucking cares.
Yeah.
She's like,
but like how awkward they are in talking about each other as like married partners.
Yeah, and it's mostly coming from Tony.
Yeah.
Like Tony's like, yes, my former ex was with a lot of men, and it was important for me that the children had a father
and a stable household and all of
and
this.
a mother, and then Dita and a mother.
You know.
And like she's like reaching out to touch him, and
but none of it feels authentic.
Like the thing is, like she feels authentic, he doesn't. But it's fine because men are supposed to be stoic and weird.
But then I love the legitimate anger they show with him when he realizes that part of his life now after Swada has died is he will have to pretend to be closeted in many instances because they can't have the children taken away. And so like Dita is forced to bring him to a work thing where everybody's bringing their spouse.
Yeah.
And it's whenever he really like kind of explodes about having to go through this, there is one part of you that's like, well, you have to for the kids. But then you're also like, yeah, as a gay man approaching probably 40,
yeah,
you're done with this shit. You just want to be who you are. And
yeah,
it's so angering that you have to even do this.
Well, it's like this interesting thing that like they're at the dinner table, the kids have been put in another place, which was like this.
I don't know why they brought all their kids to the dinner party.
Cultural thing. I know that, but it was also like this shitty thing where they tell Vanessa, watch the kids.
Because all of them are like 6, and then you have teenage Vanessa. Yeah.
And like the guys are trying to have a conversation with like Tony, but Tony doesn't follow sports. One woman is like, oh, it's so interesting that you get to keep your natural hair color. My husband won't let me, so I have to dye my hair blonde. And he's like, yeah. It's like, and she's acting like, oh, isn't that? And like you can see like the confusion upon Dita and Tony's face until they're interrupted because Vanessa has...
Well, it does feel like queer people going into the weird heterosexual world and not understanding like what is going on. I would say it's a movie. It ends on a hopeful note. Like this is not a down movie at all. But it's also a very honest movie about being a human and being a queer person.
Yeah, and it's also this interesting thing that you don't know from the get-go that Dita owns this house. You kind of assume they're in like these weird apartment situations until you're like, wait a second, like they're all eating together in this
Yeah.
place. Like they share meals together, like they share like daycare of sorts because they bounce between who takes care of who.
That part of the film was inspired by Stolvesky. He found a photo of a fellow Australian filmmaker who's older,
Mhm.
and it was a photo of the filmmaker, his partner, and the 8 lesbians they lived with in the 1970s. And then from that, he was like, what kind of story could I tell in that kind of a household?
Yeah. And it's like you later find out, like, oh, yeah, she won't kick you out, but it's also she's the one that's paying the electricity. She's the one that's paying the majority of the stuff there.
So there's a big expectation that you're going to listen to the rules and boundaries she sets, and you're
Yeah.
going to treat everybody with like kindness whenever
Yeah,
possible.
because it's also like this thing is like when the lesbian group comes and they're like, "Oh, you're still here?" Like
Ali, yeah.
to Ali or like Tony just being like, "What?" So you don't know if like they just come during certain
Well,
times.
the implication is also that like Tony has brought home a lot of guys and that they never see them again.
Yeah, and so with Ali, they're kind of like, "What?" Until he is like he's part of the family, and I do love like when they have their fight, they're all angry at Tony. They're not angry at
Yeah.
Ali for leaving. They're kind of like, "Fuck you, Tony," because they all learn to love this guy who isn't a part of their family but integrates himself so well with the way that he takes care of Mia, the way he like relates to Vanessa. And then it's also like the kind of hilarity afterwards when Vanessa gets exposed afterwards about what her plans are for the future. And you thought, oh, was it Ali that said it? And it turned out it was her sister because her sister was listening
Yeah.
to the conversation. And so she looks at her little sister. She's like, you little traitor. She's like, I don't care about you.
Yeah.
Like, Mia like does not get like too much of a storyline, but when she responds,
That's why I was saying it feels like stuff you might have seen in an American drama series.
yeah,
So it's it's a movie that's very relatable to an American audience, I think.
yeah.
Now, the main actress, Anna Maria Marinka, is established as an actress. She was in a Romanian film, 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days about abortion. I have not seen it, but I've always heard very acclaimed things about it, and I probably need to watch it one of these days. She was also in Stalevsky's previous film, which I, of course, have not seen, You Won't Be Alone, but it makes me want to see that movie. And then I believe Vladimir Tintor is
Who
also
plays Tony?
Tony is also another established actor who's got lots of movie credits behind him. So for me, if we sometimes we'll talk about who's the breakout actor in this movie, I think Samson Salim, who plays Ali.
Yeah, he's charming, he's warm.
Very authentic. He feels like that person, even though I know he's probably not that person.
Yeah, I especially love like when he started fixing his clothes when he was like saying I'm an influencer. Like the weird interaction that he was having with like Vanessa and Mia's grandmother, where like it is really strange because they're like saying slurs at him and he's kind of like, okay.
Well, it's like he grew up in that village, and that's what happens is you get
Yeah.
called the F word and all kinds of
This
things.
interesting moment that when they were like looking for Vanessa for the second time, where he was like, "Oh, we have to go to so and so, the other gay,
The other gay in the village. So it's one of those where like they know who the two gays in the village are, but then we know that, well, if you have two gay men in a village, they're not just having sex with each other all the time, right?
No.
So there's clearly bi men and closeted queer men, but because they live in a culture in which masculinity is so emphasized, they can't let on that they are involved with them. Would you recommend Housekeeping for Beginners to not just the people that listen to our podcast regularly, but to just the general audience?
I think it's good to just watch something broader than just, English speaking movies. This also showed like, everybody's like, oh, the woke or PC culture, like how it's like everybody is struggling with it.
Yeah.
And so it goes beyond just the States on how, yes, we are trying to show these, like, we want to show respect, but it's also like how some people, as we regarded before, when it came to what they should be called, they're kind of like, why are you gonna call me this if you're not gonna give me any fucking power? If
Yeah.
you're not gonna make my life better, the word isn't gonna make me
Yeah.
feel better.
The word is just your way of pretending like everything's fine.
Yeah, which is funny because living here, if you say
Gypsy,
you are gonna get scolded immediately.
yeah, but which is ironic because like every place in where we have Euro domination, yeah, they'll say that, but then you want to talk about Turkish people or Moroccan people, and they'll just say awful, horrible shit.
Yeah, they'll be like, don't say that word, but let's talk about how like black people weren't really oppressed, guys.
Yeah.
Because in Europe, that's how they handle it.
I would say if somebody really enjoyed, and it's a show I've never watched, but I would assume This Is Us.
I don't know. I've never seen that.
Which it seems like it's a big, sprawling kind of family thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to see like a queer, sprawling family melodrama that ends on a hopeful note, nobody dies other than like one person from cancer.
Yeah.
No one's like assaulted or attacked in any way.
Not that we see.
Yeah. It's implied by their pasts that maybe it's happened. But within the boundaries of this film, it's a film about this family and how they make this situation work.
Yeah.
I would say I would recommend it to you. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to check out our show notes for links to anything we might have mentioned, including our website, popcult.blog. Make sure that you subscribe wherever it is you listen to podcasts so that you'll be notified when new episodes are up. If you visit popcult.blog right now, you're going to find that in June, we'll be kicking off our flashback to 1989 series all month long. The first week of June, we'll be doing reviews of Heathers, Sex Lies and Videotape, and The Abyss, with lots more movies to come. If you enjoy what we do on popcult.blog or here on our podcast, we'd encourage you to support us on Patreon. We have 4 different reward tiers to pick from. I want to thank our current patrons, Ida, who donates at our sneak peek level, Becca and Matt, who donate at the writer's room level as well. If you donate at that level, you get to pick a movie once a month. We'll watch it, review it, and you can even add your own thoughts to that review if you choose. We also have exclusive patron podcasts that are available at any tier you join at. We're just about to wrap up a tabletop roleplay one that we've been doing. And then coming up later this summer, we're going to be doing a 6-episode look at romantic comedies, going all the way back to the golden age of cinema up to the present day. On next week's episode of the podcast, well, we know one movie we're going to be watching. I'm still trying to figure out what our second one might be, but I know for sure we will be doing a review of Richard Linklater's Hitman, which I have heard very, very positive things about. Well, until next time, you keep listening, we'll keep watching.